Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Wild Portishead show. Bit of a technical hitch there. We have a packed show tonight, and we're going to try and cram it into 45 minutes if possible, but we might slightly overrun into the hour. And tonight, Chris, we will be talking about
development issues, or we should say potential development issues.
I think development issues are always going to be an issue in Portishead, regardless of whether they're potential or not. It's so we're going to be talking tonight specifically about two particular areas in Portishead, aren't we?
Yep, south side of the main thing is Western Bigwood.
Yeah,
and it's the fields surrounding it to the south and then to the north. So to the north, you've got there we are there. So to the north of it, you've got the expanse of the Portishead Down, which is backing on towards Merlin Park, the Downs and the Deans, and towards the police HQ. And then to the south, it's the land which runs down to the Clevedon Road, which is often been referred to as the Woods Buffer Zone. And taking it that Western Bigwood is a triple SI, which is a site of special scientific interest, which obviously needs, the wood itself is protected, but so is a zone around the wood as well, which gives it the name the buffer. So we know a lot about the wood already. The wood is extremely important. It's probably a wood which started developing after the last ice age, so it's an ancient woodland, and it has mixed flora and fauna in it, and some of that is endangered, to say the least.
And am I right in thinking that it is also an Avon Wildlife Trust reserve as well?
Oh yes, of course it is. Yes,
yeah.
Avon Wildlife Trust are the owners of Western Bigwood in its entirety.
Yeah, excellent. Right, well, we've got two special guests tonight who are very pleased to have agreed to come and join us this evening. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome on board Councillor Caritas Charles, who's an independent councillor, and also we've got
Did Jonathan just disappear?
We've lost him.
Well, that was really good. Jonathan, are you still out there? Do you know the other day they said that UFOs were real? I just think he's been beamed up. He's here completely. He's gone. No? He's back.
We have. It just went a moment there. We've got Councillor Charles, independent councillor for Portishead. Which ward do you represent, Caritas?
I represent Portishead East, which is basically the Marina, Village Quarter, and the Vale.
Excellent. And we've got with us also Alexandra Overton, who's from the Portishead Downs Safeguarding Group. Hello, Alexandra.
Hello, thanks for having me.
That's okay. Chris, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I suppose the ultimate question would be, as to Caritas as a councillor, really, what are the main dangers from your political point of view, the main dangers, the main pitfalls? So we've got Alex there. We've got an efficient established group here in North Western as well. What are the things that we should be looking out for?
I think there is a major threat to our wildlife and open spaces that is being orchestrated at a higher level by central government and certain political parties, particularly the party in government at the moment, though all parties have been equally guilty throughout the years of neglecting our wildlife and open spaces. But I can see in recent legislation a concerted push to, encourage development, encourage developers, and to directly attack our open spaces as well. And this is through a multitude of things. I mean, I was seeing in the paper at the weekend the reclassification of certain animal species that were previously protected may not be in the future. And that's another step to kind of, open the door to developers into potential things. And, I think developers, I think legislation, we have to be really, really wary of that. There's a lot of deep pockets and a lot of big money out there that is pushing to make housing development easier and easier and easier. And if we don't show a concerted, united voice, what we are seeing as rumours and rumbles and threats around our town could quite quickly turn into reality.
Well,
Because there's a real danger. Sorry, there's two of us going. Jonathan, take the lead.
Yeah, go on, Chris.
No, I was just going to say that the big danger then from that perspective is the fact that if you take the map that Jonathan had up there earlier, the whole of Portishead could basically be a sea of concrete, and the only winners from that are the money people, not the people that actually live there.
Absolutely. No, you could see that. And, one of the things I think that I've learned personally from the pandemic from myself is the value of our space to breathe, our open spaces, that opportunity to stand in a field or walk through a wood and have that positive mental energy, for want of a better words, to actually, ground yourself in what has been a really chaotic and traumatic time for people. But I also think it adds to the sort of collective sense of community wellness and community well-being as well. And, I know you're talking about Western Bigwood as well, but one of the things that's really concerned me is the current consultation on things like Slade Road playing fields as well, that the council are doing. And, what I'd like to say here is, I would never support anything that takes away our green spaces, our playing fields, our amenities for short-term monetary gain, because I just don't believe it's worthwhile. And monetarily, I don't believe it's worthwhile because, the mental and physical health impacts, all the other factors, the congestion, everything else, economically it doesn't make sense, mentally it doesn't make sense, and physically it doesn't make sense. And, I will use every bone in my body to fight against that because I just don't believe it makes any sense to our community. And not just in Portishead, any of those proposals throughout North Somerset.
Caritas got a question here, which has been kind of like posed for us, which is there a danger that councils think that because they cannot refuse, that they have no other choice because they think they cannot refuse the numbers being imposed by central government, and is in reality, is it true that all policy and even some legislation can and should be considered for variation when there are demonstrable specific circumstances justifying that deviation? So I think, when it comes to Portishead, we are being included in these numbers that we have to have X number of houses built here over a determined period. But is the variable in that Portishead has just absolutely been stuffed with development over the last 25 years, and anything from this point onwards is utterly sustainable. But do councils actually have a footing to challenge government on these numbers?
They can, and they do challenge. And I know North Somerset, with the backing, to be fair, of both Conservative MPs, have been challenging those numbers. And I know up and down the country, particularly in the sort of southern towns, that MPs have been challenging that, and local authorities have been challenging what has been called an absolutely ridiculous algorithm that's calculated the housing needed for North Somerset. So I think there is a will to challenge, but also I think the threat is as well, is that if we don't put in the proposals to plan for that, and you're talking about the development plan that North Somerset's currently doing, what we run the risk of is a developer free-for-all, where they can basically ride roughshod over us, and they can, put in tentative applications and bids wherever they like. So yes, I believe we should make a positive and aggressive stance, but I think we still have to make preparation within the rules. Otherwise, we run the risk of developers just having a free rein to do whatever they want, which they seem to do anyway. But I think that's beside the point. I think we have to make a stand. So yes, we can be assertive, but we've got an obligation to lay out our case as well.
Chris.
Let's bring Alex in. Page. Hello, Alex. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Obviously, you're part of the what is the organised protest movement from up on Portishead down. Can I ask you for your? Obviously, you know the site well. You're out there walking. Can I ask you what your actually feelings are about the Portishead down, the area north of Western Bigwood?
Well, I agree with Caritas. Actually, we, especially through lockdown, we're so lucky to live here, but not just that feeling of space, that well-being. As a mother, as well as part of this committee and a local resident, how different we feel when we're in this space, when we get to look at that space. That's priceless. We can't lose it. We can't lose it. It's not fair on ourselves now. It's not fair on our children. It's not even a question, is it? We have to do what we have to do. It's precious, and we'll do as much as we can to look after it because we have to. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've said around here, because obviously I live in Northwestern, so I'm right on the south of Western Bigwood. One of the things that I've said here, that if this is going to be effective, and I know Caritas, you've seen public protests in the past, many of them, but if this is going to be effective, everybody has to literally stick together, and we have to formulate a plan. Now, there we go. That's what happened before a few years ago, and so we really have to stick together like these great people here, and really start beginnings of organising ourselves to be able to fight, protect the areas that we've got here. Caritas is absolutely right about the bringing of legislation for certain protected species. I know that type of thing has been going on for years. And if you remember, Jonathan, when we talked about when Slade Road was cleared before, I was certainly of the mind that at the time of the year that it was done in such a way that the site was effectively cleared of vegetation. Therefore, when it came to the possibility of having to look for special species, they wouldn't be there. They'd be gone already.
Yeah.
So these are things that I know can happen, and things that we have to be mindful of. And as part of Wild Portishead, what we've been encouraging members of the public to do in Portishead is to begin the recording process of species. Now, you'd think by now there would be a whole host of records out there on the wildlife that we've got, because I've been in this game a very long time. That's a good effect. That's a good effect.
Yeah.
Are you on your guitar there and on the back? No. Okay, that's really good. You must talk to me about that echo chamber sometime.
I live in one.
What I basically think is really important that we continue that recording process. Now, for example, I'm going to do is it's very simple to use. This is an app which you can get for your iPhone or for an Android, and basically this is iNaturalist. And I've been talking to record centres throughout the country about how iNaturalist actually grabs what you're seeing and is it doing anything with that data? Well, it is. So, for example, let me read out. This was a short walk across the Portishead Down about a month and a half ago, and this is basically what I got. And this is now recorded, mapped, verified, and it's now gone to the Central National Biodiversity Database, and that filters back to our own regional record centre. So the data is there. So, for example, let's start with marsh cudweed, red campion, cuckoo flower, bush vetch, pignut, cowslip, blue sedge, bird's foot trefoil, salad bonnet, meadow buttercup, ribwort plantain, smooth hawksbeard. I could go on. It's an impressive list already. And so, and if I was to go up for a walk now, the pyramid orchids are out, and of course, so are the spotted orchids. So we've got a very special site. We know that, and we know that it's right next to Western Bigwood. Let's now pick up on the people side of things, which is, to me, is absolutely critical, and it's probably the thing that will actually start to save this, because I feel that the local residents of Portishead really need this area.
We've got a question here, Chris, and I'm just queuing this up here at the moment. This is from Sue Ryan, and it says, how big is the buffer zone around Western Bigwood, and how protected is it? And let me just bring an image up so that we can actually adjust it. And
you get Caritas coming on this one as well, I think.
Sorry, say again.
You're gonna get Caritas to come in on this one for the answer as well.
Yeah. Right, you can see that. There's Western Bigwood.
Come on, is my cursor able to be seen?
No, but mine is. So you can see mine wiggling around there.
Around Clevedon Road. What I was always told that around the Clevedon Road to the south of Western Bigwood, that was part of the buffer. Now, I always thought it was the same size around the other side, but I'm now being told by certain people in council that it's actually bigger than that, and it spreads up towards Merlin Park. Caritas, have you got any comment on that?
To be honest with you, I don't really know, but if I can ask a man or a woman who will know. So get those details for you. Yeah, that's political evasion there, I'm afraid.
What are we looking at? What are we looking at roughly then, in terms of, say, meters or yards out from the boundary of the wood in terms of a buffer zone?
I honestly don't know legally where that is. I haven't got a clue, but I was always told that the area to the south was buffered by Clevedon Road, that was deemed to be space which basically protected the wood. But if you notice, prior to the wood obviously being designated, Underwood Road was already there. So I don't think it's an actual line. There is a piece of software called Magic. So if you find Magic, it's a bit of government software which actually gives you fields and their designations. So it would be interesting if you have a look at that and download that.
Interactive Magic. Okay, yeah. Talk amongst yourselves whilst I have a look at this. But yeah, I've got it here. I've got Magic here, so I'm going to have a look at that. So carry on. I am going to drop out the conversation here whilst I do that.
Let's forget that there is a buffer zone.
Right.
The wood still needs protecting, and that is basically, if during the height of the pandemic, particularly if there was any moisture on the ground, with the sheer volume of people going through the woodland, the paths were literally expanding, and there were new paths being created. That's fragmenting the woodland flora, the actual structure of the wood itself. And the wood, therefore, was suffering because of the amount of footfall within it. Now, I'm of the opinion that I really want to encourage people to go and enjoy the wood. It's so important to encourage people to enjoy nature, because if the members of the public are excluded from it when it comes to asking them to protect it and to enjoy it, they'll say, well, what is it? It's only the privileged few that can go there. Those nature reserves, I feel, never work. Nature reserves like Western Bigwood work. And the reason why they work is that they include people. And that's really important. But the wood has got, to quote Paul Gardner, 27,000 people around it. And during the pandemic, as I joked on that video, I think I met everybody, 27,000 people in there during that time. And again, that highlights what Alex has said and what Caritas has said, is how important that space, that particular space, has been, but all of our open spaces as well. So what I think is really, really important is, forget any legal obligation with the buffer zone, that wood really needs the buffer zone. And I would say on the north side, it needs the opportunity to do something that it could do really naturally. and that is expand.
Well, this is one of the things I was going to bring up is that obviously during the pandemic, as you said, Chris, there has been increased human footfall on the wood. As somebody who's lived close to the area for a very, very long time, have you noticed over the years, shall we say over a decade or so, have you noticed species drop off from the fact that there is more human interaction going on within the wood?
That would be a really difficult thing to pinpoint. That would mean intensive surveys going on all the time, and I'm sure those actually don't happen. But you can highlight individual species that would be a bit more vulnerable to disturbance, or a bit more vulnerable to, for instance, vegetation trampling, things like song thrushes. And you can look at national trends, regional trends of song thrushes, and see if there's any correlation or difference in somewhere local like Western Bigwood. And I would say, in terms of that particular species, I don't feel that there's any different to the time probably 10 years or so ago. The big difference in things like song thrush numbers goes back 20-25 years, when there was a marked difference in them. They plummeted, and so they went in Portishead from being something that we could see in the garden to something that now can only live in the wood. So that could be seen as people pressure. We forced them back to there, so to speak, probably in the nature of the way we manage our gardens now, and chemical usage within our gardens as well. So they've gone back to where they would have originally come from before we were less friendly with our gardening. But there will be species, but that would need intensive surveying, a lot of surveying to find the answer to that. And we would have need to have started that years ago.
Yeah, we've got some. I'm just going to bang through some comments here, and then I'm going to bring Alexandra back in. And we've got a comment here from Councillor Bob Cartwright, Independent, who says, while filming the wildlife, it's amazing how much is in the bush tree lines that surrounds the fields. This needs expanding, not destroyed by development. And I think that's one of the things you and I, Chris, have tried to emphasize all throughout this, is that any ideas that somehow development around Western Bigwood is compatible with Western Bigwood, I think you and I would argue, no, it's not. It's, if that wood needs to expand, if that wood is to survive long term, it needs to.
Yeah, it's under pressure already. We know that. You don't need a degree in rocket science to work that out. Just go for a walk up there. It's under pressure now. And I would say that in order to be sustainable in the future, with the amount of people that it's got utilizing it, living around it, it needs to expand. It needs to expand, and it can do that quite naturally. We don't need tree planting there. We don't need plastic forests there. We just need to let it grow out on its own, and it will do. And it will do it really quickly as well. And it will do it very efficiently. And Bob's absolutely bang on the nail there as well when he said that there's a tremendous amount of wildlife on the woodland edge. No surprise at all to me, because that's where the majority of life is, so to speak. There's still life in the wood. There's a lot of life in the wood, but if you want the loudest bird song, go to the area where it's scrubbed up. And we know that for instance, that bit of natural succession that takes place, that bit of scrub where the young trees are growing up through the scrub, boom, off it goes. Wildlife just goes boom. And that's what we need to aim for. And if you want to make nature recovery across the district, that's what we want.
Now, Alexandra, there is something being organised for August. Would you like to fill everybody in on what that is, please?
So hopefully you've seen some notices on Facebook already, but at 3 o'clock on Sunday the 1st of August, we are going to do a photo campaign. We're trying not to call it a protest to scare people off. We will give more details because they're going to be in 2 different places. We just want to, as you said, Chris, we just need to join forces with everybody, get everybody involved and show that we are all supporting the same goal and how much it means to all of us, our open spaces in Portishead, and just get our voices heard, really. But we will confirm those confirm those places. But yeah, August the 1st. Sorry.
No, I was only going to kind of say the importance of what groups like Alex's actually do. And what I see all too often when it comes to any potential development is people wake up far too late. And literally when the bulldozers are rolling in, people suddenly go, oh my God, what's happening? And, you know, to misquote, I think, Joni Mitchell, you know, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And, you know, the time to take action on these things is now. The time to take a stand is now. The time to raise your voices is now. When the developers' lorries are rolling in, that is too late. That is too late. The time is too late. The time is to do it now and make your voice heard. And that's really the most important thing, I think. And so, you know, any support I can offer to groups like Alex's, I'm more than happy to. And also as well, you know, putting my politician's hat on, you know, this is a council that signed a climate emergency. You know, this is the one that said that. So, you know, pressurize them, put their money where their mouth is and say on things like Western Bigwood, you know, no means no. No means no, and you will work with groups like Alex's, you'll work with groups like Royal Portishead to actually ensure that these areas are defended. And no means no on Slade Road playing fields as well. And that you will defend those open spaces. And if you are serious as a council about your climate emergency commitments, you will take every single one of those greenfield development proposals off the table, because you can't call yourself a climate emergency council if you don't do that.
Characters, we've got a comment that's come in here, and it says, what are sitting Portishead district councillors doing to collate solid evidence against putting houses in Portishead?
Good question.
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm an independent. I'm one person that sits there, but I know what I do is I gather evidence from people within my ward and a multitude of different things. So one of my areas I look at is the positive mental health and the strains that are put on people by things such as congestion, such as the lack of adequate facilities, which is a reason for against putting extra houses in Portishead. And also as well, you know, it's those kind of evidence. I know the town council, I know Paul Gardner's watching, is doing an awful lot as well through their neighbourhood plan. And that's another really good tool to fill in. So I will plug for Paul and say, you know, there is a neighbourhood plan consultation going on. Please fill that in, because that helps express the town's concerns about development in the area. And the data that Paul and the town council and Paddy as chair will collect adds even more weight to the arsenal with regards to that. So,
yeah.
Sorry, John.
That's all right. We've got Councillor Gardner, Paul Gardner is watching tonight, and he says we can compare species versus the Avon Wildlife Trust detailed wildlife survey done in about 1990. So that's an interesting piece of information there to do with monitoring Western Bigwood and seeing how species, how species.
Paul. Can you ask Paul if that's the entire Gordano Valley?
Say again, sorry.
Paul, I know we haven't got Paul here, but I can see the comment. Does that mean? I think Paul's referring there to a study in the 1990s, which was the whole Gordano Valley, as opposed to an intensive survey on one area. So if we were looking for example, a comparison, something that we could really get our teeth into, what we would need is a survey, an intensive survey that was done, 1990, that would be great. And then one done now. And then we could look at those differences, see where plant species have dropped off, or insects have dropped off, or birds have dropped off. We would have that there. But I don't, if it's the study I think he's referring to, I think it's the whole of the Gordano Valley.
I think Councillor Gardner says yes, so I think that is a yes to your question. It is one to do with the entire Gordano Valley. What I'm going to say is, I think what Portishead could do, and to liaise with Alexandra as well, is, and with the Safeguarding Portishead Downs group, is to actually really start pushing to get this information out, to actually start having solid data on species decline or species increase, and to actually start building up the dossiers of all this information, because ultimately that's going to be the thing. It's the data that you're going to defeat these people on. And in fact, another question that's come in, and I will throw this out there to any of the councillors also watching, is, are district councillors currently writing reports? So are they actually collating solid evidence against more development in Portishead, or are they just relying on the town plan? So, Caritas, you don't have to answer that one. I think that's a question that somebody has lobbed at us tonight, and I think that's one that we'll throw that out there to the councillors, any councillors watching, to see what their response is the long term. But certainly when it comes to.
Sorry, Jonathan, I can answer with regards to the kind of areas. I'm not an expert on wildlife, and I'm not an expert on housing in that respect. But one of the things I do have a passion for and do work on is the stuff around health and well-being. So I'm currently working with a lot of other councillors on the impact there and how development can affect that. And one of the things I'm actually really working hard for is that when any development is considered within North Somerset, that we actually have a responsibility to look at the health and well-being implications of any planned development, and I'll be pushing that through North Somerset Council. So I know people have different areas, and the town council are doing different things, but from my kind of area, that's what I'm pushing it on that angle.
And I said we've got another comments come through here. We've got some very, very well-informed people tonight. This is quite scary. One of them is, we're constantly told get it into the NDP, but it is North Somerset Council who will be approving planning applications. So I think what that's implying is that as much as it's easy to point the finger at national government to say, well, they're the ones asking for this, it does come down to the fact that it is the local council and it is local councillors who ultimately vote on these things and approve them. So, I think that's something that has to be. Caritas, yeah, I can see the finger of opprobrium from Caritas there. So go on.
I had a very clear thing that I had from talking to residents when I stood for election, is to not support any development that doesn't have a clear infrastructure plan against it. Now, some people misread that as not supporting any development. That's not the case. But if things that attack the Greenbelt, things that attack our natural resources, that's the commitment I know I can't speak for my other independent colleagues, but that's a commitment that I made, and that's a commitment I will stand behind. And what I would challenge people outside of Portishead who are councillors to say is, we took brave decisions on things like Bristol Airport against the advice of our planning officers, and we said no to Bristol Airport. So can't we replicate that bravery in saying things like no to development around Portishead or any other of our towns and villages in North Somerset, and take that bravery and make that stand? We can't be selective in this. If we're going to be brave, I think we need to be brave in all aspects.
We actually got a response to that from Councillor Gardner, who says that is true, but the NDP carries statutory weight in the planning process. So North Somerset Council and planning inspectors have to take notice of it. The other thing is to challenge the local NSC plan as it emerges. So, well, yeah. So what we're getting here is this. I think Alexandra, this is helping to inform a way forward in trying to formulate a plan against this, and also trying to explain to people what the processes are that are weighing against them, in the hope that will galvanize people into realizing then what is at risk, what we risk losing. What I know you kind of covered it earlier on in the show tonight, but if somebody said to you, well, people have got to live somewhere. We get this a lot. People have got to live somewhere. Your house was built on what used to be green land. There is a need for affordable housing. We get all this all the time. If somebody said to you, actually, I disagree, I think we do need to build on Portishead, and I do think we need to build on Portishead down. And we're very sorry that the song thrushes are going to suffer, but people come first. How would you sell it to them? What would you say in response? I know that's a lot to lob at you, but
so many things to on. But we can't be people. We can't be happy people, can we? Without these spaces. And as again, just as a local resident, you can build houses there, but that begs the question: what about all the other things? We're going to go into those rants about we might already get a doctor's appointment. Our children might already not be able to get into the local school. I mean, where's the access? There's so many other questions and ripples that you have to think about before even of those things. And I am extremely lucky to live here, and I do feel grateful to live here, but also guilty that we've already taken up that space. And I already feel guilty that I was one of those people walking through the woods and disturbing the wildlife, but also hopefully valuing it and learning about it at the same time. Hopefully I don't know what the compromise is going to be, but we need to think, I don't know, about all the ripples and about everybody.
But actually, I'm gonna. You see, I have been unequivocal in this. I have been on the front page of the North Somerset Times 4 years ago saying that actually just no more development, full stop. That this town has, it has gone beyond the call of duty in terms of one. It's a bit like Mr. Creosote from the Monty Python film. It's always the next development is always going to be the wafer thin one. And it's more, and it's more, and it's more. And we're constantly being told, but we can have more houses here because that will be offset by the railway, and all these kind of mythical jam tomorrow promises that we've constantly been fed in Portishead. But what happens? The reality of living in this town at the moment is, and I would say to every town councillor and district councillor watching tonight, is pretty much this is your default. This can be your default position. Is there just aren't the school places. There certainly isn't the space at the doctor's surgery, and the fact that we've got another surgery in Portishead, but even then, you haven't got the capacity there. We have chronic parking problems in Portishead now. Even where I live, the number of junctions that I have to drive past where you now have cars parked right at the end of the junctions. So that because there are too many cars, this is a town drowning under the weight of motor vehicles. Obviously, we have congestion problems. We have problems with school runs. It is a town which, yes, physically you can still find more places to build houses, but to accompany that, there is then the entourage that goes with it, which is the health coverage, the school coverage, transport links, parking, and it's that's always my default position. Is if somebody says, well, I think we could squeeze another couple of houses in this little corner of Portishead, is to say, okay, then where is where are the doctor's appointments going to come from?
There's also can I jump in there and say that that point as well about what about the existing population? What about the health and the well-being of the existing population?
Well, we actually have a comment here from Alex Wild, who says chronic parking problems which prevent wheelchairs from using pavements, never any enforcement. And I got to say that is a particular bone of contention, because I have friends who have mobility problems, and just recently, one of them couldn't actually get along Nor Road because there were vehicles parked up on the pavement on Nor Road, and they had to turn round and go home because of the parking issues. The parking issues down the marina are legendary, I think is the best way of putting it. And it just seems, from my perspective, this was something I was always concerned over the last 25 years, is certainly when this kind of rampant, I think some could call it, what's that horrible word, gentrification of Portishead, is that it was development after development after development. And I'm sat here, and I've lived here for nearly 50 years now, and I'm thinking, where are the cars going to go? you know, it's all very well saying that you're building a two-bedroom house and it's going to be inhabited by 3 people, 4 people, but somehow sometimes now a single house can bring with it 3 or 4 cars. You know, I know it's a bit of a rant there, but there we go. But that's, you know, that's always been my default position on that, is that.
Jonathan, can I also say as well, there's a lot of people will say, oh, well, affordable housing. And people say, be really careful what affordable housing actually means, because affordable housing, as the government defines it, is probably out of the pocket of a large amount of people on minimum wage jobs in this town. So it's not about bringing housing in for people who desperately need it. It's probably bringing housing in for people who can probably afford somewhere else as well.
Yeah, and I think you see that's another issue I have with whenever these developments are dangled in front of people, you know, like shiny keys or something, is that the foot in the door is, but there's going to be a percentage of it is going to be affordable. And then we're told, but we need to build these houses because we have a housing shortage. We have a shortage of affordable housing. My observation in Portishead over the last 25 years is we've had every opportunity. Previous councils have had every opportunity to address the problem with affordable housing. But all these developments go through, and what do you have? Executive, you know, luxury flats, and then when it comes around to the next bit of land being eyed up for development, it's, well, we need affordable homes. Well, you've had the opportunity to do that over 25 years, and you haven't tackled it. And I know that sounds harsh to say that, well, you know, it's now disenfranchising a lot of people because you're arguing against development now. But the problem is, there is only a finite amount of space in Portishead. There is only a finite amount that our infrastructure can take, and I'm afraid to say we are beyond that now. We passed that ages ago. This is a town that is chronically suffering from infrastructure, and we need to get that sorted before we even start thinking about building any more houses in the town. That was a party political broadcast on behalf of, but you know, like I say, I'm speaking as a resident, and I'm speaking as somebody with an interest in wildlife. At the moment, I think any more development in Portishead is utterly incompatible, certainly, you know, not just with the wildlife, but certainly with the quality of life of the upright apes who live in the town. I'm not looking at you, Chris.
You're preaching to the choir.
Well, I know, but you know, it's like I say, is what do we do to take this forward? Alexandra, I know you've got this photo opportunity media event, I think we can call it, planned for August. But what else would you be urging people to do at the moment? Contact their councillors, write to the newspapers. What would you want them?
Absolutely, just get their voices heard. We would like also to know, I get a lot of people say to me, you know, I've seen this wildlife, how do I get it to you? So if you can make that simple and clear of how we can collate all that evidence for you guys, that'll be helpful. Just make their voices heard, contact their council, contact anybody they can, not just go through us, not just talk to us on the school run really quickly, make sure it's in written form, and make sure they're not just saying that they're going to support us on those dates, actually show up and join forces. Yeah.
Now you've got a Facebook page, which is Portishead Down Safeguarding Group.
We do.
Which I think we can probably actually get around to giving it a name so that people, you can put a name in the address so that people can find it a bit better. But for those of you who are wondering about this, we will link this to our Wild Portishead page so that you can find it directly there.
Arthur, can you also do Friends of Northwestern Wood as well?
I am just going to call them up as well. Yes, of course. But yes, you've got that group which we'll link to. And also, bear with, we've got the Friends of Western Bigwood as well, which, there we go, Friends of Northwestern Group, they're called. But that's another group that is out there. Oh, I've got to do all this sharing. There we go. And we got the Friends of Northwestern Wood as well, who. So we've got one group representing the top end and one group representing the bottom end as well. So yeah, we'll pop links through to that so that people can follow that. And let's try and, I think what I would also say is try and get these out into other groups as well, and just try sharing the hell out of it so that we can build up the numbers a bit more. So
can I also, you've mentioned about people who should be contacted. So far, you haven't mentioned Liam Fox, and that's with the fact I think Caritas touched on it earlier about his speech in Parliament about this very issue, about the issue of development in North Somerset and the algorithms. And I think I'm right in saying that he was to Western Supermayor's MP as well.
John Penrose, yeah.
Yeah, so when people are writing to their councillors, do not leave the MP out. Contact the MP, because we know that he feels pretty strongly about this, and if we can get his back up as well, maybe he'll go back to Parliament again and say, "Come on, what are we doing about this?"
Well, you've actually had conversations with him, haven't you, Chris?
Yes, about issues like this. Yeah. Sorry, Caritas wanted to say something.
No, I was going to say, and it works, particularly at the moment, so get commitments from them because they're terrified. The recent Chesham and Amersham by-election was lost by the Conservatives due to development and the planning proposals that are currently under consideration and being implemented, and things like the HS2 going through the HS2 rail link going through the countryside. That's what lost them, Chesham and Amersham, and they are absolutely terrified about that, and they think that can be replicated right across the southern belts where they've got MPs. So people like John Penrose and Liam Fox and his friends are absolutely terrified about that. So if you start people writing, they will listen.
Right, Chris, we've got about 5 minutes left. How would you like to wrap up this evening?
It's been a really interesting season, and I've got some great news from my garden, from my rewilded garden, and that's rewilded underlined twice, by the way. And the great news is that for the third year on the crop, I don't know if anyone else in Portishead has had this. Do contact if you have, because I'm really interested in this subject. So earlier on in the season, when we had the cold spring, where we still had frost up to the beginning of May, the great tits nested at the normal time. They laid eggs early April, and they hatched and they fledged, but they only had 4 young. And normally, if you look in the books, you'll find that great tit only breeds once a year. Well, for the third year on the trot, and that's the third year of cold springs, which then go into wet Mays, as the insect population in the garden started to rise because the weather got a little bit better, guess what they decided to do? Breed again. Really interesting. So is that mean are they beginning to compensate for the fact that we've got low insect densities through that early point of the spring due to a climate change effect, which is making our springs that much colder? So then as we move into summer, the insect levels rise and they breed again. And I'm very pleased to say that 7 great tits fledged today. So July fledging, absolutely incredible. Along with the third lot of robins to get away, and the second lot of blackbirds. So it's almost like the beginning of the breeding season for the birds started. It started too early, so to speak, but it started at its normal time. And now what's happening is that it's almost like it's finishing on a boom when it started on a little whimper. So maybe nature shows beginning signs of the fact that if we give it the habitats, it will compensate for the climate change that we're actually seeing around us now.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else on the audience? Alex?
Well, I'm just going to say I have noticed I've got a fresh clutch of starlings in the garden this year. In fact,
Second brood.
No, this is the first brood. They're quite mature now, but they all live up in the gutters, but I was watching them out today on the feeders, and yeah, it's good to see. Obviously, a red listed species, so it's good to see that we've got a healthy population in my garden.
Well, I'm also happy then to report that here, again, where I live in Northwestern, we've had at least 2 pairs of starlings go to a second brood as well, which used to commonly happen when I was young, which wasn't that long ago. But then there was a massive gap of no starlings at all. Then there were starlings only having 1 brood, so not enough young to replace them. And this year, for the first time in a long, long time, 2 broods. Brilliant stuff. Really good news stories, these are. Really good. Why don't we go around everybody, Jonathan? That was my observation. Now go around everyone and find out what they've been seeing lately. Anything unusual?
Yeah, Caritas, anything unusual?
Well, I'm going to borrow an observation from my wife because I'm not the most observant person. But we were talking today in the car, and she was appreciating some of the sort of uncut verges, and she said how she'd seen more pyramidal orchids than ever before this year, and how it was such a joy to see, and how we really must, and she was nagging me about it, do something across North Somerset about ensuring that we, have that wilding of our verges and making sure that those lovely natural flowers and plants are allowed to thrive.
Well, I think this comes back.
If I speak Russian, he shuts up.
I was going to say, I think what Caritas just said also feeds into something we are still trying to push for, which is for North Somerset Council to cooperate with Portishead Town Council with regard to a works schedule around the town, so that we can actually feed in and say to them, actually, you've got that area down as being cut on the X of whatever month, doesn't need doing. It's things like that. Alex.
Hey, Jonathan, that's a good point. Before we go on to Alex, are North Somerset actually talking to us now, or are we still on the bad list?
I have no idea. We're working on it. So
okay.
Alexandra, anything
I might throw a spanner in the works on that one. Living up at Merlin Park, we were like, as residents, we're a bit confused about why there's poisonous hemlock growing in our buns. Is that okay? Is that not okay? And 2, we love rewilding, but why is it right next to a play park where children, speaking again as a mother, are now going to play in the wrong grass where they can't go on a bench and they're coming out with ticks? I don't know. Again, it's the people versus wildlife thing. Sorry.
That's where, Alex, I'm these are things that I warned about. And you've got my view has always been, and I'm going back now 10, 15, 20 years, that what's really important to wildlife is people.
Okay.
What's really important to people is wildlife. So when you create somewhere that's for wildlife, it's fine, but there's obviously flaws and dangers within that. So, for instance, if I was creating, if you look at my garden sometime, what you will see is wild edges and then wild blocks, and then plenty of other areas where my 2 small children can play without getting scratched by a bramble or falling in a pond. But those things are still there, and they respect those. That's the point, is if you try and integrate the two too much, you're going to get problems. But what you do is you plan it in such a way that you don't get those issues. And if you've got the burning hemlock there, then obviously if they have skin which rubs up against it and then sunlight gets on it, they will know it.
Okay.
It's horrible.
I did see a deer, in Merlin Park, and I thought that was happening. So that's my good thing, I think.
Chris,
the lovely thing you've got round at Merlin Park. Sorry, Jonathan, but the lovely thing that you've got round Merlin Park is on one side to the police HQ, that fantastic hedgerow. What I would love to see is that hedgerow replicated on the opposite side, so that you've got a real wildlife corridor running right down aiming towards the wood, literally saying to the woods, come on, it's here.
Chris, am I also right in thinking that we've also had sightings of red kites over Western Bigwood and down the Cordena Valley?
Yes, we have. There were 3 red kites seen. I've observed one in the old quarry here at Northwestern. But there were 3 seen together, and those tend to be these adolescent birds from last year who are now moving around. They're basically moving away. The good news is, I can tell you, and I think we've had this discussion about kites before, when people were joining us live and saying, "Yeah, I've seen them around about Swindon now." So if you go back through the years, the original release program at Oxford, the red kites went down the M40 and the M42. They ended up on the M25, and then they did a dog's leg and turned up the M4. And I think it was about 5 years ago they were breeding then up as far as Swindon. Now they're coming further and further west. So it won't be long before they're a regular bird for here, and very welcomed. Beautiful bird.
Okay, we've got one last comment here, and I think this is actually a good way to round off tonight, because I think this is a spur that I'd say everybody watching tonight, if you can actually do this either tonight or tomorrow, it's a start. And that's, again, it's from Councillor Paul Garden, who says, I emailed Dr. Fox's office this morning and asked him for his support. Apparently he is pushing to stop developers land banking and actually build on the land where they already have planning permission. So I would say, and I'm certainly going to do this first thing tomorrow morning, and hopefully everybody watching, everybody here in the studio tonight will do this, and hopefully some of you watching as well will do this, is we put the link up to Liam Fox's details, email him to get him in on the conversation about why we need not only why we need to protect Portishead Down and Northwestern, the fields in Northwestern, but how we actually need that wood to expand outwards, to actually grow. And that's something we can all do in 5 minutes on our phones or on our laptops or on our computers. Done. So I think...
Yeah. Don't forget to also, for everybody in Portishead, it'd be interesting if 27,000 people came out, but to support August the 1st. Is that right? It's August the 1st.
We will. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and do a couple more live shows in between them, because there are some other issues we want to talk about, and there are some other people we want to invite onto the show as well. So fingers crossed. On that note, I'd just like to say thanks tonight to Caritas Charles and to Alexandra Overton for joining us tonight. We're very grateful for you coming along, and you're more than welcome to come along for another show as well for updates and things. As ever, Chris, good to see you. Hopefully we will actually at some stage meet up for a socially distanced look at one or two areas that we've been talking about.
Go to Black Horse sometime.
And we are going to go to the Black Horse sometime, yeah. Anyway.
Valley.
A walk to the Black Horse. Always end on a good note. And on that note,
Jonathan, can I just add a really quick thing as well? Do fill in North Somerset Council's consultation on the selling of developments at the moment, and state your objection to Slade Road playing fields being on that list. It's really important.
If you can, Caritas, if you can get us the link to that and pop it onto the Portishead page, or just message it, we'll share it, and then we'll get people involved in that as well. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for tonight. This has been brilliant. We will be back very, very soon. Obviously, probably after the kickball is all finished. So on that note, say thank you to everybody. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll like Arnie, we'll be back. See you all soon. Bye.